Hello everyone and welcome to this tournament livestream game we have for you today. So this is coming from the Wingspan Open, which is a best of 5 single elimination style tournament, and this is a round 3 matchup between jeastthebeast and stayfun. And joining me today on commentary I have Groovenstein. So hello Groovenstein, how are you doing?
Doing wonderfully on this 47 degree Fahrenheit sunny afternoon here in the central United States. How are you, sir?
Lovely, I'm very well, and yeah, I'm looking forward to this. I think we've got a good matchup in store. Like I said, it's best of 5. We will, I think, be streaming the first 3 matches of this, so potentially could be coming to a conclusion, or we could be setting ourselves up nicely for a really long match between 2 very good players here. So without further ado, I think we are ready to get this game going. So Jeast, if you don't mind sending out that invite, we can get this started. Okay, and I believe Jeast is the one who'll be going first, so the players did flip before the start of the game just to see who will be going first, but they will alternate. So once this game's done and we go into game 2, then Stefan will be going first in that one. But for now, we have Jeast here and some good cards. Quite good food source, I think, but might struggle a little bit for wetlands. How do you see that starting hand, Groove?
Yeah, exactly as you say, and some nice complementary birds too. Anytime you have a nice bird like the gnatcatcher, the warbler and the vireo always go very well with that because it's super easy to get grubs. And uh, now we see this is interesting. Geest is looking at potentially the canvasback or the mockingbird uh,
Hmm.
in the tray. That's it's always an interesting call. I mean, I think you have to kind of favor the the canvas back there just because you don't want to have nothing in your wetlands, but that mockingbird is definitely definitely tantalizing for sure.
Yeah, I think I agree with you. I think it's one of those where, ideally you'd get hold of both, but obviously you can only take one, and then it's kind of up to your opponent as to whether they choose to take the other one. But absolutely, I think looking at that start, really good food generation. Obviously, the fish crow really going to be a good start to that grasslands engine. But really, the card draw is kind of what's missing. So I think the canvas back is what I would be looking to take, and certainly that's what I'd expect Geese to be going for from the tray.
Yeah, yeah, and I was just gonna ask, is your tack here? Because if I think you kind of plan on relying on the fish crow a little bit later. It's like you use the gnat catcher to kind of help you get set up quickly, and then
Yeah,
expecting that you'll eventually start to rely more on your grasslands for food.
absolutely. So I think it's quite an interesting start going for those 4 cards, but I think you're right. That Gnat Catcher is really gonna come into its own in that early game. Just being able to get all that extra food, and you see all those worms in the feeder. Certainly should be able to easily get some of these big point birds down as well.
And
Um,
speaking of worms, look what Geist is
s-
up against. He's
s-
going to get hoisted by his own petard.
Absolutely. Speaking of worms, for those of you who don't know, Geest's favourite bird in the game is that eastern Phoebe. So I would certainly be expecting Stay Fun to keep that. Really, really strong bird, kind of in its own right. But you look at these end of round goals with that star nest, and particularly if you can get that down in your grasslands, that's going to be really helpful. But also that yellow throat, it's going to eat the worms that the Phoebe's giving it, and get plenty of cards as well. So yeah, I think this looks like a pretty good start for Stay Fun.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if I'm Stay Fun, I'm certainly looking to keep the Phoebe and the yellow throat, and you can
Mm,
rule out the pelican. And one thing you can do anytime you're trying to make any decision in Wingspan really is not only can you look at what your options are, but what they aren't, and then you kind
yeah,
of narrow the universe down. So the pelican here, of course, is not even worth considering. So really, the question is, are either the condor or the sparrow worth keeping? And I think there's potentially an argument to be made for both of them, just because you've got. I mean, you essentially right. You let's say you keep one food, you get the Phoebe down, you lay eggs, you pick up the grub you need to get the yellowthroat down. Then you've got a couple other cheap birds that you can get down, particularly getting that condor down in the wetlands, so that you're able to draw an additional card without spending an egg. Plus, I didn't see if they went with the rodentologist or the enclosure builder, but the condor would count towards that as well. I don't know. What are your thoughts there?
Yeah, I mean, I think the way you describe that is really helpful. I think particularly, like you say, narrowing down your options. You look at these birds and think, well, which ones are kind of obviously not keeps and which ones are obviously keeps, and then kind of in between. That's where your key decisions are. Obviously, every bird that you keep here is a food that you then can't keep. I think the strength of something like the condor, like you say, if it's going to meet that enclosure builder, but also not taking any food. So if you are going to be a little bit more greedy and kind of go for that extra card, then you're not going to struggle getting the condor down. And likewise, as I said before with the yellowthroat, easily getting hold of that worm from the Phoebe shouldn't really be too problematic there. So yeah, this is an interesting start. You don't often see two players against each other both keeping 4 birds and just a single food, but I think there's definitely an argument to be made in both cases here, just because of those strong food generating birds early in the game that can help get the food to get these birds down and have a really quick setup.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think another thing you've got to be looking at too in this scenario that I'm sure stayfun is spending their time considering is, you know, except for those rare situations where you get branted or rend, like you got to figure your opponent is at most taking one of those birds out of the tray, so you kind of can plan which other one you're thinking about taking and sort of build your strategy for the first handful of turns that way.
Absolutely, and yeah, I think it will be interesting to see, assuming that Geest, yep, they do take the canvas back. It'll be interesting to see if stayfun does go for the Mockingbird, because I almost kind of feel like they don't have anything that really pairs that well with the Mockingbird. Certainly, copying that Phoebe is risky because obviously it's going to give you lots of food, but it gives your opponent lots of food as well. And seeing all of these worm-eating birds in Geest's hand that he's going to get down so much more quickly does make you worry a little bit there. So yeah, I think that Mockingbird is going to stay, and certainly looks like it if this Condor goes down. So really the test here is going to be if Geest goes back for that, because I think, like you mentioned before, kind of Mockingbird and Fish Crow in your grasslands, that's a really, really strong setup. You can get eggs and plenty of food all at the same time. So this will be interesting seeing what Geest does on the next move.
Yeah, and I'm a bit surprised with that in mind. I mean, because with the Mockingbird, even if you don't necessarily need it now, I mean, it has two types of value that I think make it worth picking up. One is if your opponent, it's as kind of a sort of a block where it's like if your opponent has something that's worth mockingbirding, or there's a chance that they will pick it up, it's worth a block there as well. Or there's also a reasonable chance that you're going to pick up something worth mockingbirding as well. And yes, mockingbirding is now a verb. But I'm a bit surprised that not that necessarily that stayfun played the condor, but that they went for it in the forest. I mean, my approach would be to get the Phoebe in the grasslands, and then use the condor to get to that. Get it so you can get 2 cards in addition to the 2 that you're getting with the yellowthroat. What do you think about that move there in the forest?
Yeah, I think you could justify it in the sense that having Phoebe as the sole food source is risky. You're not going to be able to get away with just worms all game. So at some point, you're going to need something in that forest to at least give you the opportunity to discard some cards and get a second food. And certainly when you've got something like the yellowthroat, you're going to be drawing lots of cards. Plenty of those are not going to be birds that you look to play, and so instead you can, in this situation with the condor, discard those for the extra food. But yeah, I think like you, my first kind of thought would have been get that down in the wetlands alongside the yellowthroat, and just start digging for cards. You know, the more cards that you see, you have a good chance of finding that forest bird, and you know, maybe it's going to be a brown power forest bird that is going to get you points or food alongside it, rather than the condor, which is giving you the bonus card at the start of the game, but isn't going to give you much else throughout the rest of the game.
Yeah, and I think the risk there, and the reason that I kind of prefer it the way that I do is, as you say, not only are you looking for potentially a cheap forest bird, but you might also pick up a food bird in the grasslands as well. I mean, maybe you score a crow, maybe you get really lucky and score a raven, maybe you score a hummingbird or a towhee. So there's plenty of good grassland food birds or forest food birds that you can pick up before you've committed to that condor in the forest, because there's I just think there's the universe of cards that you can potentially hit is just so large there with all those different options. So
Yeah, I think you're right. You know, once you get those kind of nice birds like the yellowthroat down in your wetlands, I think you can afford to just start digging. And like you say, you might find that second grassland bird that's going to pair well with what you've already got. But there's plenty of options, and you know, by committing, like you say, I think you kind of tie your hands a little bit. Obviously, still a good chance for getting that nice card from the deck that you can pair in the grasslands with the Phoebe, but by already sort of committing and playing that condor, you do put yourself that one turn behind where you could have been if you'd got the birds down and started drawing cards that one turn sooner.
yeah, now that ring build goal, that's a really solid pickup, particularly with, I mean, it can use those grubs from the Phoebe. It applies to your bonus card and has all the benefits of any wetland tuck and draw. So I think it's a really solid pickup for them at this stage.
Yeah, absolutely. And if they do get that down alongside the sparrow they've got in their hand, that's their bonus card basically done on that first stage at least. So one less thing to worry about at least. And like you say, really nice power. I think it's a really good second wetland bird to get down, because not only is it letting you cycle through and see more cards, but you're getting points at the same time. And I think that's always nice if you can at least get the option of getting points when you're going for cards. It doesn't feel like it's a completely wasted action.
Yeah, I mean, I think if I'm stayfun, I'm looking at these next 3 turns. I'm going eggs, and get the goal down. I mean, that wins you the first end of round goal, gives you a great start towards the second one, and then you get your wetland in position for when the tray turns around at the beginning of the next round.
Absolutely, and that's a really key point. I think you see in this position, obviously we know stayfun going second at the start of this game means that they're going first in that round 2, and games can so often be decided by that round 2 tray. Something like a gull or a raven comes up, but even those other birds you talked about before, like a hummingbird or a towhee or one of the crows, so many times we see that second round tray being key, and by giving yourself the best chance of drawing as many cards as possible, setting up your wetlands in that way, that's really gonna help guide that decision, but also give you more cards to see at the same time.
Yeah, and I guess they opted to go for food. I wonder if they're just a bit hesitant about sharing food with G's, just because G's can only get the 2 food in the forest. I mean, it's a good forest. I'm not downplaying it, right? But G's can only get 2 food at a time without picking up the additional cards, or if they want to use a crow, like their grasslands is not really very strong right now. So I'm wondering if they're just concerned about giving Geest a little bit too much help, particularly now that Geest has the canvas back down, and card generation's not going to be a problem. But even so, of course, if Geest wants to use the canvas back, it benefits them. But now I see what they're doing.
I think this makes sense. Get the sparrow down, because now when they are laying eggs, suddenly you're getting 4 instead of 2. So obviously that Phoebe is going to be getting food and giving food to the opponent. But if you're suddenly getting 4 points from your grasslands in round 1, then that's a really quick setup, and that's a good way to get those points early in the game.
Yeah, I guess the only argument against that is now that now you're not going to have that goal down for the turnaround in round 2. But I mean, which I in my opinion I think is the preferable option. But you think you're right on that this this is definitely a strong setup. So it's it's a good option what they've got. Not the one that I would prefer, but man, we're really seeing how well set up they are with their bonus cards. They've got all these complimentary bonus cards where they've you can anytime you can play a card and it qualifies towards 2 bonus cards, it's good. And so far they've done that 3 times.
Oh, and talking of round 2 trays that can change the game, how about Killdeer?
OMG.
And talk about birds that are going to meet 2 of your bonus cards as well.
Yeah.
That's what you want to see. Yeah, and they've already got the worm to play it as well. So good thing they didn't play that ring build gull, because probably wouldn't be getting much use of that.
Fair enough. Commentator eats their words.
Absolutely. So probably a no-brainer here. I think you picked that up straight away. And oh my god.
Oh! It's a Christmas miracle.
Wow. Okay. And this is I'm lost for words. That's kind of a complete turn the game on its head right there.
And they still have the Mockingbird, dude.
And they've still got the Mockingbird, so
and the slow.
And they can't draw.
They can't play all 3 of them, unfortunately. But
no. Wow. Okay. Well, here we go. This completely changes the game, I think. This I'm kind of lost to even know how to sort of digest all of this, and I think they're having that feeling as well, taking their time. What do I even get rid of with this kind of absolute wealth of riches I've got in front of me?
Yeah. I mean, I think the gull it's either the gull or the tanager, and I'd probably go tanager just because at least the gull qualifies for a bonus card. But interesting choice here actually, because I think certainly having the benefit of the Mockingbird is obvious, but that potentially. I mean, what do you think about maybe keeping the Swallow over the Mockingbird, and at least, yes, you can still because you can still generate 3 food a turn that way with the Phoebe, and at least that way you're generating points and you're getting to see additional cards. I mean, it's like you use the Mockingbird. Let's say you use the Mockingbird to generate some additional draws with the Killdeer. Well, none of them. You're not going to be able to do anything with those cards. You don't have a tuck and lay in the grassland. You don't have a tuck and draw, right? So all you're doing is just generating extra cards and then massive food. I mean, I don't know. I might opt for keeping the Swallow in this spot.
Yeah, it's a difficult one, and I think it's very easy to look at a hand like this and think, oh, you've got all these strong birds, that must be so easy, but I mean, I've been in this situation before where you kind of almost feel overwhelmed. You have kind of too many options, too many things you could play. There's only 5 spaces in that grasslands. You can only play 5 birds there. And actually choosing which ones to get down out of all of these options you have can be really difficult. Certainly, like you say, I think with something like the Killdeer, you kind of want a tuck and lay because you're going to be drawing lots of cards, and actually being able to turn those into points, certainly the ones that you're not going to play, is really important, because otherwise you're kind of discarding eggs and not generating a lot of points from the grasslands. But yeah, for me, I think certainly that Swallow is probably what I would be looking to get down rather than the Mockingbird, purely because it gives you that extra card cycle as well, but that point generation is going to be really nice. I think it'd be interesting to see whether they do continue using the Phoebe. I know this is something you've talked about before in terms of when you see your opponent is kind of weak in generating a certain kind of resource, you want to avoid giving that to them as much as possible. And I think I'm looking at Jeast's grasslands here and thinking, it's nice, it's getting a few eggs and their food from the fish crow, but if you can avoid giving them too many worms, because I think the more food that you give Jeast, the more times you allow him to use that grasslands rather than have to go to his forest, and the more time he's using that grasslands, the more points he's scoring. So I think if you can be savvy here and try and shut off that Phoebe and stop giving the free worms, that's really going to help in the long run.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you gotta remember too. Any time that they, in that situation where they have to spend an egg, that is one fewer egg that they can use to play a bird, which is going to affect their their ability to kind of get birds down and build that grassland out. And so you kind of, by slowing down the rate at which they can build out their engine, you are really kind of generating some net positive effects for yourself by dragging them down there. So we're all about dragging people down in this game, Flynn.
Absolutely. Wouldn't have it any other way. But yeah, I think it would be interesting to see if they do use a Phoebe here. I think this is probably the one turn where I would look to use it, because you could then get the swallow and the killdeer down in the same sequence. You get them down on consecutive turns. I think it's important to get that swallow down as well, potentially just for that end of round goal. You kind of look at Jeast, and you see he's got 6 spaces. Currently, stayfun only has the 4 on the Phoebe, but getting that swallow down is going to help with that as well. So, this is kind of one of those points where you go, okay, giving my opponent 1 worm, but the kind of efficiency and tempo that it's giving me by allowing me to get these birds down that 1 turn quicker, I think it's going to be helpful for stayfun to do that. So, here we go. This is the key point. Are they going to do it or not?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think there's another benefit too to getting the swallow down first, which is that when you draw from the killdeer, you can then take the worst of those cards and tuck it behind the swallow. So there's and then of course, which stayfun did wisely, right? You put the raven down first, so then you can. It's like, okay, you do the killdeer, grab a couple cards, get rid of one you don't like, gain a point, and then now you can guide your food decision there as well. So yeah, I agree. I like getting that extra food, and and getting the swallow down in front of the killdeer.
Yeah, and I think you make a really good point about kind of order of activation. So you don't always get this kind of luxury of being able to pick and choose where you play these birds, because maybe you played the swallow already, or maybe you've already played the killdeer, and then you get these birds like the raven later. But certainly, I think the way stayfun's building this up, where that killdeer gets activated first, so like you say, you draw the cards, then you go to the swallows, you can tuck anything you drew that you didn't like, and then you activate the raven. And that's the point where you've seen all the birds, you've seen 3 cards, then you can pick which food you want to get. This is the order that ideally you want it in. So I think it's worked out nicely for stayfun here in that sense. But yeah, certainly I think being able to get the killdeer down now, alongside that swallow, is really strong. And yeah, Jeast is going to be looking at that and sort of banging his head on the table and wondering, where did it all go wrong?
Yeah, I mean, if we see Jeast's stream cut out, we can RIP their laptop.
Yeah, I think it's frustrating because they will have seen obviously the killdeer in the tray, so they knew that their opponent was taking that. But then when you see the raven appear before the killdeer, that's when you see the full picture and you know what's left to come, and not good there, but certainly really good for stayfun. And again, you look at the bonus cards. I think the backyard birder is kind of one of those you normally hate to see it, but I think they've kind of got maybe 4 or 5 of the strongest birds in the game that meet that bonus card. So not only are you able to score it and get some extra points, but you've got these really strong brown powers that they're going to be able to make use of throughout the rest of the game.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, they're already, they've got a monster set up. Once they get the killdeer down, they're only going to be 1 bird away from maxing out the backyard, and then 2 away from maxing the enclosure. Now this is interesting. They're opting for this. Must be a decision to win the end of round goal.
I think so. I think if they'd played the killdeer, that would have left them with just one egg down, and then obviously running that grasslands
hello.
is going to generate eggs, but then there's discarding as well. So yeah, you don't mind that on the pickup. Again, another enclosure nest bird, and certainly, you know, when you've got this kind of setup that's drawing lots of cards but getting lots of food as well, you want these big point birds to play on those turns when you're not laying eggs and still score, you know, 8 or 9 points. Yeah, that's the dream right there, and yeah, really, really strong pickup, I think, for stayfun.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, the difference, you know, with the end around thing is, even so, they're still only going to end up with 5 eggs, which Geast, if they opt to play the killdeer, which Geast can beat. So it really only makes a net difference to them if they are gonna, wait until the beginning of the next round to play the killdeer. So they're which is not necessarily bad. I mean, it's just it's always a winning versus losing an EOR is always that 6-point swing.
Yeah.
But as it turns out, if Geast does as they're doing, which is to play a bird down, now they only have 4 eggs. Now stayfun is just fine, and I will shut up again.
Yeah, and it's interesting, I think, a situation like that, because, you know, obviously Geast could see they're going to lose the end of round, and so, you know, they could have laid eggs to at least get them on that 6 to be close. But I think by playing the Grebe, it has kind of opened the door a little bit to stayfun, like you say. I think their plan was to lay eggs again, because, you know, playing that killdeer is going to lose you that end of round instead of winning, which is such a huge swing. But yeah, now they kind of have that luxury position of, actually, I can play the killdeer and I'm still going to have 5 eggs, so I can still win the end of round. And just, I think, getting it down that 1 turn sooner, like we were talking about before, it just gives you that opportunity to see more cards. And, you know, the more cards you see, the more likely you are to get those big point birds that you can play later in the game.
You know, Flan, I think I think we've screwed that up here, because I think, yeah, Geast went second this round. So actually, we were initially correct that they, that stayfun will have to, they'll have to lay eggs again and wait on the killdeer. So, boy, it's a good thing the players have their A game today, because commentator. Oh, hello.
Oh, hello.
Let's just get some more giant point birds.
Those are the big point birds we're talking about. You know, I think that when you look at the remaining end of round goals, you know, total birds, platform nest birds, the egret's going to help with both of those. So, yeah, certainly good. I think that stayfun had to lay eggs there again. Otherwise, they wouldn't have picked up the egret. So, really, really good pull for them. And yeah, like you say, Geast is going second. So I guess they can choose if they want to lay eggs. They'll see that stayfun has kind of filled up already, all those spaces, so they know, okay, it's not going to make a difference to the end of round. But you know, they've set themselves up nicely, as we spoke about before. You know, they're going to be looking at that round 3 tray, and who knows? You know, maybe there's a Franklin's Gull or something in there that can potentially bring them back into this game. But they set their wetlands up nicely to give them the ability to see as many cards as possible.
Yeah, because I mean, you gotta figure what. What is this?
And your lottery numbers tonight are. I bet he's wishing he didn't play that warbler, because otherwise that gull bushed it would have been a really nice combo in the grasslands. But
bushed it real good, yeah.
Wow, bushed it real good indeed, yeah. That's
I mean, it's such a tough, it's always a tough decision where, if the cards that you're seeing in the tray, and this is, right at the end of the round, I'm talking like where if the cards you're seeing in the tray are not that great, and you don't want to waste a turn ever, right? So if you don't really like the cards, you don't want to end up drawing cards more times than you have to. So I get why you waited and just got the warbler down, but it's it is a little unfortunate.
Yeah, it's a bit of a kick in the teeth, and it's kind of at this point, I don't know if it's almost bordering on the point where it might be too late to play the Franklin's goal. I think certainly he's going to have to consider, I think with that strong wetlands, being able to get as many cards as he likes really. He kind of needs to focus on getting some big point birds down. I like that Finch pickup. It's going to help the bonus
Oh
card.
yeah,
It's going to help I think he's got the ecologist, so he wants to get as many
yes.
forest birds down. And certainly, if you can get big point forest birds or bonus card giving forest birds like the Finch, then that's really nice. So shame he's just revealed the bald eagle to stayfun, who I'm sure will be trying to snag that up as quickly as possible.
Unbelievable. It's when it rains, it pours.
When it rains, it pours. Indeed. Yep. They're getting all the big point birds that they need, and I think with this kind of setup, where you are being able to generate so much food, that's what you want. Being able to spend all that food and actually scoring points from it. That's going to be very nice for stayfun. So yeah, they might have the strange decision of having to use their wetlands here to try and pick up some of these birds. But
Well, and if you're going to do that, I mean, that kind of raises an interesting decision of its own, which is, is it? Do you consider not even playing the killdeer at that point, because you'll have a bunch of cards that you can cycle through the swallow. The killdeer is and see, there you go. There's
now it gets interesting.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, I think actually, especially having just picked up the crane, I'm thinking I might not even play the killdeer at this point.
Yeah, I think I'm inclined to agree, and perhaps that's maybe why they're looking at the shoveler as well, and they're thinking, okay, this kind of hits a few key points. It's going to help the bonus card. It's a big point bird, but also if I do have to go back to that wetlands one more time, it's going to give me that extra card. So yeah, I think we might be seeing the death of the killdeer here, really, because like you say, that crane, that's going to be really nice in terms of point scoring in the grassland. So yeah, some more tricky decisions, I think, with a plethora of strong birds. Which do I choose to play in that fifth grassland spot?
Yeah, and so if you're Geest here, what's on your mind? What's your approach to this? I mean, other than going crying in a corner, like what's your approach to these next few turns?
It's a tricky one. I mean, it looked like on that last Sunday picked a rodent with the fish crow, so I'm assuming they're going to try and get this. I think it's the broad-winged hawk in their hand. I'm assuming they're going to try and get that down. That at least helps the bonus card, the ecologist. But potentially if they do try and go for food, because they've got some of these really nice birds. Again, with that problem of the fish crow only getting one food a turn, I think if they can generate more than that in their forest, it might be worth going for. Certainly, you want to be getting as many birds down at this point as possible to try and help with that end of round goal as well. And yeah, they've got a couple of nice bonus card giving birds as well that need a lot of food. So I think the plan at the moment for them is try and get this hawk down, get some food, and try and get these birds down.
Yeah, I mean, if you're thinking about the goal at this point, and the goal does does have some additional value, because it would be, they're assuming they play the Finch, which they absolutely will. The goal provides a sixth bird for their bonus card, so and also an additional qualifier for that last end of round. I don't know what the status is there in terms of who's got what, but I mean even though typically a late third round goal is not what you're shooting for, I think I think here it still carries enough value to be worth playing.
Yeah, it is tricky, because you kind of you look at how many turns are left and you think, okay, I've got 8 turns, and I want to be getting these other 2 birds down that are going to give me bonus cards. So really, that's only 6 turns. If I've got to get the food for the goal and then play the goal, that's another 2 turns gone. So you're kind of shrinking your opportunity for the number of turns for activating that goal. And kind of, I think the more that shrinks and the fewer and fewer turns that you might get some usage out of it, kind of the more it would make me lean towards actually not playing it, because they have got a decent wetlands. They can draw 5 cards, keep 4 of them. I think certainly if they could just draw cards once more, maybe they get some nice big point birds as well that they can look to play. I think that's going to be the focus, really. That the Gala is going to be good for the bonus card, is potentially going to help them with that last end of round goal as well. But if it's going to be eating those eggs, that's kind of less points that you get for the end of the game. So it is a tricky one, but I think it's kind of at that point now where he's not played the Gull already. So I think the longer this goes on, the less worth it is to play.
Yeah. You've convinced me. You've turned me around. I've used some of your great British persuasion skills on me. Your superior argumentation, and
I'll take it. Yeah. So in terms of stay fun, I'll throw the question back to you. What kind of is the approach here? Do you try and get that crane down as soon as possible, or do you try and do some of these double plays in the wetlands?
Well, I mean, I think the double plays in the wetlands now, it kind of depends on the end of round, right? Like let's set the end of round aside. I mean, because they can't, in all probability, they're looking at it. They can't win it, right? They could tie it or they can lose it.
Yeah.
I'm not saying they can't, but like it seems dicey. So, when you're talking about the difference between winning and losing and tying and losing, it's only a 3-point difference. And so there, I think I would be looking probably to get that crane down, start generating some points from that, and then then look to get that double play down in a little bit, or maybe look to get the food for the eagle. And now that you've got that you've got a reroll on the bird feeder, for which we know the expected value is 0.83 or 0.87 or whatever it is, thanks to your maths of Wingspan video. They've got a chance of picking up some fish that way. So yeah, I think I might want to get that crane down and kind of start generating some points from that. I mean, the problem that they're going to run into with that, though, right, is there's only a couple of times that they can do it before they have to get another bird down, because they'll be out of egg spaces, and neither the crane nor the eagle provide much in the way of that. So yeah, I guess maybe you could go for the double play, but yeah, I don't know. I think I might be looking at the crane here regardless.
Yeah,
maybe the crane, and then into the shoveler, buy you some more egg spaces, and I don't know. This is a tough spot, I think, and I can see why Stayfun's taking their time, and I'm tripping over my tongue.
Yeah, I think it's a tricky one, and I think for me it's kind of a similar situation to the Gull. You kind of look at that crane, you think, okay, I can get 2 points of time from it, but they've got all these other birds that they want to be playing. First of all, that's going to take turns, so the more turns you're playing birds, less turns laying eggs, less turns using that crane and scoring points. But also, the more of these birds they want to get down, they are going to get a lot of food from that Raven and Phoebe, but they kind of need to use that sensibly. You can't, I think, afford to be spending too much of it on that crane, obviously playing it and then discarding the food for the tucks, when you want to be getting these big point birds down. So yeah, it was interesting. I'd noticed they picked up the cuckoo on that previous turn. Again, it's one of those where maybe it's a little bit late, but I think certainly when you see your opponent with an ice grasslands, and they'll know that Jeast has got the Gull, so I think they might be expecting it to go down as well. But yeah, I think there's some points to the chat about the double plays and the end of round goals, and how do you use that eagle most effectively to try and get the fish, to get some of these other birds down. I think that's kind of where Stayfun's decision making is kind of taking them at this point. There's so many different options. I could play these birds in 10 different orders, and which of them is best. It's always difficult to work that out. So I kind of don't envy the decision here.
Sorry, I didn't mean. I was just so surprised. Like, you get the cuckoo down, you got to spend the egg off the bowl nest. You only got one bowl space right now.
Yeah, I mean, I'm assuming that This next turn will be laying eggs anyway, so they can try and clear that off. But yeah, I think
Fair enough. Yeah.
it is one of those where, why not? There's kind of no disadvantage to taking it off the bowl nest, to at least give you a bit more space. But yeah, I think we were already saying that they're going to have to be careful with these egg spaces. Plenty of these birds do have only a few egg spaces, and the more turns they spend laying eggs, they're going to fill that up. And certainly the cuckoo's kind of going to accelerate that. But yeah, I think really they've kind of got this set up in a way that if they lay eggs now, they can get enough food to do the eagle into the shoveler as a double play. So I think that's probably what I'd be looking at. Try and get these big point birds down, help for the end of round goal. But that shoveler's actually got 4 egg spaces, and that's kind of going to be really important for them as we go into this final round.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the shoveler plus the egret is the 7 egg spaces between them, plus the eggs that you'll have to spend to get them. So that'll clear out a couple rounds worth of eggs for you.
Yeah,
sure.
And I think that crane, that kind of signals what we probably already expected after that cuckoo went down. Obviously, if they are going to play these 3 birds they've already got in their hand, you still need something to cycle through that swallow to get you points. So I certainly would be expecting them at this point to, just try and get those birds down, get some egg spaces. The eagle's going to follow not too long afterwards. But maybe they get something else nice just from cycling through on this swallow that they can look to get down instead.
Yeah, and see, I thought they might be eyeing that Bob White when I saw him doing the checking the enclosure bonus, because now they might be thinking, okay, I can get the Bob White. This is going to get me a ton of extra egg space. Plus, it's going to spend 2 eggs, so that's an 8-point clearance of egg spaces there. Plus, it does get them out to that 5th spot in the grasslands, which, as we know, with the Raven, you can it makes it easy for you to turn food into eggs that way. And potentially, I'm going to guess then what they would be looking for is then using the eagle as a card to cycle, and playing the egret shoveler, because the shoveler now is a 10-point card. With if they play the Bob White as well, the shoveler becomes a 10-point card with the enclosure max bonus. So my guess would be that's the route they're taking.
Yep, and I think it makes sense. You kind of look at the Bob White and the eagle, and on the surface you go, oh, it's 5 points compared to 9. It's a no-brainer, but the extra eggs that Bob White's going to generate on its own are probably going to make it worth it. Like you say, it gets you that option of discarding for even more eggs. But just that nest space as well is really going to be helpful, I think, for stayfun as we go into this last round. But just going back onto G's board, obviously we did see they did play the gull a couple of turns previous, so they did kind of commit, think, okay, I can get this down, it's going to help for the bonus card. They have managed to max out the bowl nest bonus at least, and a really nice pull, I think, on that bonus card, really, the wetland scientist. They're already looking to play the king rail, and again, I think this is another point that I've heard you make before. If you can play bonus card birds that already meet your existing bonus cards,
oh yeah,
that's exactly what you want to be looking to do.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, if you after you account for the bonus cards, the king rail is a 9-point bird plus whatever bonus card it generates. So yeah, that was I mean, as getting 3 points off a kind of random bonus card pull towards the end of the game is something you got to be happy with that in most scenarios.
Yeah, certainly. I think anytime you pull a bonus card late in the game that you've had absolutely no chance of working towards, you take 3 points every time. And yeah, certainly it's going to give Geest a kind of little glimmer of hope, I think, at least in their own mind. But they'll know they're up against it. You see this grass and that your opponent is building up, and you know that even when you're laying eggs and scoring points, they're getting a point as well from that cuckoo. I think it is going to be difficult, and probably going to take a miracle bonus card pull here, omnivore specialist or something like that from the king rail, to bring Geest back within a fighting chance of winning this.
Yeah, and even then, I'm not really sure it's possible. I mean, I think we just saw the scores flash, and it was like 50-69 or something. Yeah. So I think at this point, it's it's been a nice comeback for Jeast, and they've certainly played well as we've expected. But yeah, I mean, stayfun has just really drawn some amazing cards, and done a good job, getting the most out of them that they can. I mean, I think we've seen a game by two very strong games here as we expected, and I think ultimately, just the better card draws for stayfun were the difference.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's one of those where it's easy to look at this and think, okay, they were given all the great cards. It's easy to win, but you still have to make those decisions. We've seen quite a few key decision points. Do I play the killdeer? Do I play the crane? Deciding which cards to tuck, which to get rid of. How to work through those problems. It's not always easy, and I think being able to manage it in this way, I think stayfun has done a good job. Being able to make the most of these bonus cards. I think they've been sensible for targeting the right end of round goals at the right time to give themselves a fighting chance there. And yeah, when you look at Jeast, I think it is one of those where you're kind of up against it, but you can only do what you can do. You've got to kind of stay sharp and really try and maximise the points you're getting, because let's not forget, in this tournament, if the series is tied after 4 games, it comes down to point difference as to who's going to start that final game. So it's not an insignificant advantage going first. So being able to kind of minimise the damage and keep that point difference close is potentially going to be important as this series goes on.
Yeah, absolutely. And you kind of hinted at a really great point there, which is you think that, okay, they've thrown away the killdeer, or they've thrown away the crane raven combo, and I think that's really a kind of a hallmark of experienced play. I know that early on, when I was playing, I mean, I would many times kind of fell into the trap of kind of getting all glossy eyed or whatever at the oh, it's a killdeer, I have to play it, and just completely ignoring the fact that it's late third round, and how many times am I really going to be able to get to use this bird? And so I think it's the idea of, and you and I have said it a million times in previous broadcasts, and I know you've said it on your videos. It's there's no such thing as a bird that's always good, or a bird that's always bad. Every bird can work depending on the spot. And so I mean, just because most of the time the brown pelican is a pile of crap, or maybe below, maybe there are scenarios where it works. It's like you could play it on your second to last move and meet a bonus card, and then it allows you to play the puffin and all that stuff. Like there are no real universals in this game. It's all situational, and yeah, I think we've seen a lot of experienced decision making from both of these players along those lines.
Absolutely, yeah. It's kind of all key. It's all the situation, the kind of context, where the game's going. I think being able to make those right decisions, certainly, I've been a victim of it before, and I've seen other players do it as well. Like you say, you kind of get these nice birds. Maybe you pick up a raven in the end of round 3, and you think, I have to play this because it's a raven. Not paying attention to the fact that you've got a really nice forest, or you've already got lots of food, or your goal is just to lay eggs and fill up. You're not really looking to get that extra food. I think being able to kind of recognise those situations, when is it right to play a bird versus doing something else, that's kind of really what makes this game so challenging. And I think stayfun has managed to deal with that pretty well in this game.
Yeah, and I think that's something that our any newer players who are watching this can keep in mind, because one of the questions that newer players often ask, right, is what are the good birds, or whatever, and the newer players can certainly keep this in mind, but we all need to keep it in mind, and I know we all lose sight of it. Is that you got to ask yourself, what am I trying to accomplish by a particular move, and so you have this bird. So what is it? What does it do for you, right? What are you trying to win the end of round? Are you trying to clear up some egg spaces? Are are you trying to max out a bonus card? It really helps to just be clear with yourself what the exact purpose or intent that you're trying to accomplish with a move, and then you can ask yourself, okay, is this particular move the best way to accomplish that? It's important to remember that that your birds or your food or whatever, like all these resources, they're all just tools, right? And the goal ultimately is just have more points than your opponent at the end of the game. And so you just are using these resources that you have that will allow you to do that.
Absolutely. And yeah, as we kind of get into these last couple of turns, I think it's kind of key decision time for here for stayfun. And it's been pointed out in the chat, we've probably spent the last 5 minutes saying how well they've played this game, and a couple of small errors I think are creeping in. They didn't discard off the Bob White on that last turn when they used the Raven, so coming around to lay eggs, this time they missed out on one. But even then, just kind of looking at the number of eggs they've got, after they presumably discard here and then use that Sparrow, they're only going to have 3 spaces, so they are potentially going to miss a few points. Not a huge amount at the end of the game, but I think every point is important, and certainly expecting Jeast to lay eggs at least once more. That's going to be another egg from the cook as well. So I think they would have been hoping for another nice bird to be looking to play on this last turn rather than having to lay eggs. But yeah, it's still not a bad point scoring turn. Obviously they can still get the tuck card on the swallow as well, which is nice.
Yeah, and I mean, sometimes that happens, as you well know, within the end of the game, where it's just sometimes either maybe you ran out of cards one or two turns, before you were where you could have maybe tucked them or whatever, and it's just sometimes your resource allocation at the end just can't be perfect, but you certainly do want to make sure that you're planning for that. Well, that's a nice bonus.
Yeah, how's that for a bonus pull?
Yeah, as you were saying earlier, they need a nice bonus pull.
Yeah,
well,
there it is.
Here you go, mate.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that comes into play kind of in one of the things you want to be thinking about in the last handful of turns, right? Is you want to think of it as sort of a group, right? You always want to think of your turns, as you want to think of them on an individual basis, but also as kind of a set of of moves. And so maybe one move is fewer points than another move, but the combination of 2 moves is better than the other combination of 2 moves. And so, yeah, it can be a fine line to walk sometimes, for sure.
Yeah, and I think it's it's one of those where we kind of talked about it at the time. A couple of turns previous to the start of this round, egg space was kind of always going to be critical, I think, for stayfun at the end here. Maybe you go back to that cuckoo play and think, was that necessary? Maybe it's a little bit of a defense against the grasslands that Jeast has got set up, but it's kind of accelerated that egg space problem, and maybe they could have cycled through a little bit more and chosen to play a bigger point bird or a bird that had more egg spaces. But yeah, I think, like you say, it's seeing the bigger picture, and kind of this collective group of 5 turns at the end of the game has certainly been strong. They've got plenty of big point birds down, scored a lot of points in that grasslands, and yeah, the scores are going to count up now, but certainly I would be expecting stayfun to take the win, and they do very comfortably in the end.
Yeah, no suspense. They don't even let the little horses run.
Absolutely not. But I think we kind of expected stayfun to win there. But absolutely a strong score, I think, for Jeast. 95. They manage things well, and yeah, when you're up against that kind of grasslands that your opponent sets up, it's always going to be challenging.
Yeah, I mean, overall a great game like we expected, and I know we're definitely looking forward to the next one.
Absolutely. So, as mentioned before, this is a multi-game series. So, this is the Wingspan Open, which is best of 5. I believe we will be showing potentially 3 games today rather than the full 5, but we will definitely have at least one more. So, yeah, please do stick around. We will look to get Game 2 started very soon. All right, after that very brief interlude, I think we are ready to go. So we'll be having G send the invite again. But as mentioned, stayfun will be going first in this game too. And it will continue to alternate for as many games as we need in this series. So stayfun with that lead after game 1, but the series is far from over. As I said, best of 5, plenty of opportunities for Jeast to bring this one back.
Yeah, I mean, Geist did end up getting hoisted by his own petard, but
Indeed.
you know, we shall see if perhaps there's a Phoebe waiting for him. And oh, that already I can tell. What a tray!
There's a house finch waiting for him.
There's a house finch, and I saw a ring-billed gull as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
Always a strong bird. Goes nice with the first and third EORs for sure. So stayfun is gonna be pleased with that. Now let's get a drum roll and see what they got in their hand.
Indeed, let's see what they've got.
Come on, come on, come on!
The suspense is killing me.
I know. I want you to do it. I want you to come on, hit me, come on.
Hopefully they're still there.
Yeah, it's like, God, what it turns out like stayfun had a heart attack or something. I'm gonna feel awful. I would say I'll see you in hell, but I'm pretty sure my ticket there is already booked. So,
is that just from what you've been saying on these streams, or something else?
Oh no.
Another tuck and draw.
Yeah,
tuck and draw's on the menu. So yeah. Other than that, yeah, not too inspiring, but I think you were just about to talk about the egret, so I'll let you go on.
Well, the egret's a nice one in the beginning. A lot of the times, just because it's 4 points, it's cheap, it's flexible on food.
Yeah.
But but yeah, nothing good for them from a forest perspective, and you do hate to, you know, I mean, in most situations, you really, you hate to use a bird like the robin in the forest just because of how strong it is in the grasslands. So, I think, you know, if I'm them, I'm thinking. I mean, your opponent's going to get one of either the finch or the gull. I'm thinking I'm taking the gold for that to give me an advantage on that first end around. And with the egret, you can get a quick grassland, or excuse me, a quick quick two birds in the wetland. And you've already got a grassland tuck and draw in the robin. But I don't know. I mean, what are you thinking? Because they're in a real tough spot right now as far as generating food. They might just want to keep the one bird and keep a bunch of food. I don't know.
Yeah, it's a tricky one. I think you want something in your forest, absolutely. For me, I think the robin kind of, I think as you alluded to, it is always going to be stronger in the grasslands. And really, these tuck and draw birds, they stack really well. So if you can get two or three of them, and just cycle through even more cards and get even more points that way, that's really nice. I think for me, I would certainly be looking to keep the egret as well. I think you need something in that wetlands just to give you the option of getting more cards. And certainly when you do have these tuck and draws, you kind of need those extra cards, just in the off chance that you do draw something good. You want something additional that you can tuck to cycle through. But yeah, they're looking at the Dixis as well. I'm really hoping that's just something to tuck and not something to play.
Yeah.
Because yeah, I think you can make a case where these birds that tuck and get the egg, they can be really strong. But when you don't have that wetland to supply it can be quite difficult. But yeah, I think for me, I'd be going finch and robin in the grasslands and just cycling through. Between them, they've got 10 egg spaces. That gives you plenty of turns to lay eggs and cycle through. And with that double tuck and draw power, you can hope that after not too long, you've found that cheap forest bird or a towhee or a Phoebe like we saw in the last game. Something that you can get down to at least help out a little bit with your food generation.
Yeah, I mean the problem that you're going to run into. So and what maybe they're thinking, right, is okay. So between the robin and the finch, I mean the good news is that you can, it's three different food, right? So you can keep those three food that way. But then either way, you're either going to have to draw a card to be able to tuck through it if you're going to keep the egret, or if you keep that third card, then you just have to spend a turn drawing food. Or do you consider just tucking the egret straight away and maybe hoping for that somewhere in all those cards you see is going to be a bird like another wetland bird or something like that.
Yeah, I think it's a tricky one. Certainly, kind of the food they've picked, I think to me signals that they're going to look to get that egret down. So hopefully, shouldn't be too many surprises there. But yeah, we now have Jeast's hand. Kind of the opposite problem here. A really nice kind of food generating bird, straight in there, no hesitation. Keep the grosbeak and ditch the rest. So I think they'll be looking to go for that gull. Although, here we go. stayfun doing as you suggested, going for the gull over the housefinch. So I think Jeast is going to be really, really happy and really probably quite surprised. I think that housefinch is still there. He'll be jumping all over that.
Yeah, and I think the thinking from it on stayfun's end has just got to be looking at that, looking at that first end around. I mean, you don't want to emphasize end around too much, but in the first round is really the only spot where you're looking at potentially an 8-point swing, right? Because sometimes in the first round, depending on what the goal is you can be looking at a 4-0, right? Where you're, and in this type of with this type of end around goal where it's birds of a specific nest type, It happens regularly enough where somebody will have one and somebody will have zero. So I mean, I can kind of see it. I'm again, maybe it's I don't know if it's what I would have done, but I can certainly see the merit to it.
Yeah, I think you're right. There's a justification, and I think that justification is partly end of round and partly being able to get that wetlands set up a little bit quicker, being able to see the more cards. I think whenever you do have a decision like this, you kind of have to, similar to what you were saying at the end of the last game, you've got to think ahead. You've got to kind of see it, not just almost not even looking instead of, okay, one turn versus a group of turns. You've got to look, okay, round one versus the whole game. So maybe
Mhm.
that goal gives me a leg up in that first end of round goal, and it's going to get me that little bit of tempo at the start of the game. But if you've got the House Finch and the Robin in your grasslands, the point potential for that as the game develops is just so huge. And I think I look at
Mhm.
something like the Finch and I think, okay, could I score enough points from that versus the goal to make up for a first round loss in the end of round goal? I think most of the time you could make up for that.
Mm.
So I think yeah, like you say, you can make the case for something like the goal, but in most cases you would expect to see the House Finch be the preferred bird there.
Now this is interesting. The woodpecker in a
Mm,
spot where you got no cavity nest and no cherry in the feeder. I don't. It's
yeah,
unfortunate.
it's a tricky one. I think the woodpecker. I think most people would agree that it is one of the strongest forest birds you can get, but this is absolutely not the situation for it. When the food in the feeder wasn't set up right, and like you say, you don't have that extra cavity nest, so you're not really maximizing it. Yeah, I wouldn't be too surprised if stayfun chooses to tuck this and go for some other cards. But hey, they've got that option of drawing cards. Now they've got the gold down at least, and they can always discard the egg to get an extra one.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, Stay Fun's issue right now, right, is they're going to need a cheap food bird. So they need
Yeah.
they need a towhee, they need a chickadee, they need. Oh, that's a nice little pickup too. Just not for this, not at
Again,
this exact
not
moment.
at this exact time. Yeah. Yeah.
No, but one of the 4 point crows. They just need. They're just going to be digging and hoping to get one of those. One of those cheap food birds. Fortunately, they're going to be able to look at some cards and pick up a couple points here and there. But yeah, they're just kind of dig and pray at this point.
Yeah, I think that's the answer. Like you say, dig and pray. You're seeing 3 cards per turn in the wetlands, and then you've got that card cycle as well in the grasslands. So certainly the way they've set this up, they've given themselves good options to try and cycle through, dig through the deck, and get that nice forest bird they're looking for. But I think it will be a bit of a challenge here for stayfun, because the longer it goes on where they're not finding that, the more turns they're kind of falling behind. And you see the way that Jeast is setting this up. They've got a strong forest bird, they've got a strong grassland bird. All they're looking for is something to go in that wetlands, and they're pretty much set.
Yeah, and I mean they've got 9 egg spaces, so they'll be they pick up one card and they'll be able to lay eggs a few times and tuck some more.
Oh, look at that pull. Was that blind from the deck?
Oh my goodness, yeah.
And he's already got the food to play as well. So yeah, we'll have to come back to that, because it looks like stayfun might be going for a solo Vireo here. Now, I did kind of think about this. You've got the food, was it in the feeder, the cherry? And it is
Mhm.
just something. It's a star nest. It's going to help, at least with that second end of round goal as well. So you don't often see this with these kind of double birds not using their double bird power, but I think you can make a case for it here, just to at least get that forest bird down, so you have the option of being able to get more food.
Yeah, I mean, I hear you because he's just in such bad shape
Hmm.
uh, in terms of food generation, and so yeah, you get that Vireo down, and then depending, I mean, that Geest is going to be resetting the feeder with some degree of regularity with that grosbeak. So you just kind of hope maybe on the next feeder reset that you get a nice setup with that, where you can get the food for the woodpecker, and now all of a
Absolutely.
sudden,
Yeah.
you're getting 2 food and 2 eggs with geese still not having a cavity nest up. So you're in a very strong position for the second end of round. You're getting those 2 points off the eggs plus the 2 eggs. But yeah, so basically you're just looking for a unfavorable feeder roll, and you're in a good spot.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it is one of those where, you're kind of in that desperate situation where you have to make those unconventional plays to try and, at least get something set up. But yeah, we have Geese going from blind from the deck, and yet again draws another very nice one. So that canvas back, I think, is probably one of the better cards that they could have drawn, really. They just need something in that wetlands to enable the extra card draw, but certainly the brown power on that canvas back, getting the extra cards, and that star nest is going to be very nice for Geest.
Yeah, the unfortunate thing for Geest is they keep pulling cards they can't tuck.
Exactly. Yeah, I think they're hoping to draw something bad so that they can actually lay eggs and cycle on the finch. You don't want to be skipping that power, but it's a nice problem to have. I don't think you complain when you're drawing loads of good cards blind, but certainly it is making Geest's life a little bit more difficult in the short term, at least.
Yeah. Now, how do you feel about them ditching the woodpecker there?
Yeah, I don't know how to feel about that. I would certainly have expected them to tuck the blackbird instead, the yellow-headed one they already had. When you have these kind of, like we said before, not great wetlands to supply you with cards, but also the whole point of having something like the robin in your in your grasslands is to cycle through. But yeah, I will stop talking because we've seen Geese ditch the canvasback for the merganser, which is probably one of the least common birds that I've seen played. Certainly, yeah, not one I play often myself.
No, and he must have just been doing that for the end of round, because I'm thinking, okay, like he could have laid eggs, tucked that, and picked up the red-breasted merganser, and all of a sudden you got a ton of cards you can play or you can draw. I mean, so yeah, you think? I mean, that's the only sense that I can make of it.
Yeah, it must be
the exact same food, right? So
exactly, it's the same food. But yeah, the red-breasted merganser obviously has the much nicer brown power that is going to help get more cards. But yeah, again, it's a little bit similar to the kind of decision that we saw stayfun make at the start of the game. Do you do something in the short term to help you with that end of round goal, or something that's going to help you more in the long term? But we get another nice pull, I think, there for stayfun. That fish crow's probably going to save them, just in terms of that food generation. There's already fish in the bird feeder, so they can spend one turn gaining food, they can get that down, and then that grasslands, they can just start cycling through that, get the food, and obviously that card cycle on the robin is going to be nice as well.
Yeah, no doubt. And yeah, I mean, you cycle that blackbird, the brewer's blackbird, that is.
Yep.
You can probably go ahead and get the yellow-headed blackbird down if you'd like. You kind of cobble together a sort of early to mid full tuck engine with the yellow-headed blackbird and the crow. That I would do that, but and it's anytime there's flans involved, a guy has full tuck on the brain. What can I say?
Yeah, I don't know. It's I'm not sure I'd be looking to play the blackbird in this position. I think like I mentioned before, you kind of want as many cards as possible to get those tucks on the robin, and obviously the more cards you're tucking in the wetlands, the less you give yourself to tuck in the grasslands. I did find it interesting that they did, again, like we saw with Geest, they left the merganser in the tray, but unsurprisingly, I think Geest going for that They kind of want to get that down as well, I think, just to help out that card draw, and then they're pretty much set in their grasslands as well.
Yeah. Now, I'm not a fan of this vulture play here. I mean,
Mm,
I see what they're maybe they're thinking. Okay, well now I can get 2 food, right? But if you just throw away the vulture to get the
yeah,
food for the fish crow, you get the fish crow down there. At least you can get a food, and now you're getting all the benefits that we know of having a food bird and a tuck and draw in the grassland. And it's not like Geest has any predators down. It's not like you're going to count for any food there. It's not going to be enough eggs to get you uh, the end of round if Geest maxes out. Granted, now if Geest doesn't max out, then fine. But still, I don't think it's I don't know. I don't think I would have done that. But
yeah.
Stayfun has fed me my foot plenty so far in this in this podcast. So
Yeah, I think I'm inclined to agree with you. My kind of first reaction was, okay, go for food, ditch the vulture, get the food for the crow and get that down. I think by playing the vulture, obviously longer term gives them better access to food in their forest, but I think really once you get that fish crow down, you don't need to worry so much about that. I think you can probably rely on that fish crow, to get the food, to get some birds down. You want to be getting these kind of birds down as quickly as possible in your grasslands to start, generating those points and those resources. So, yeah, they can at least get it down now. Certainly, I'd be expecting that to go down, and yeah, it's an interesting one. It's not going to help in the end of round really that much because, like you said, I think I would be expecting Geese to fill up all of their cavity nest spaces they've already got.
yeah, that's all I can say. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I don't know. It is going to be an interesting set of moves for Geese to do here. Now, they, I think they just ditch a food to get an extra egg.
I believe that they did, sir.
Yeah, this is this is interesting to try and work out what they're planning. I think they wanted to get the mockingbird down, but couldn't quite get the
Mhm.
food for that. I wonder if they're trying to play the kite as well because they've kept the rodent, but then I don't know. Double play. Maybe that's what's on the cards. Titmouse plus kite in the forest to at least get them, out that extra step to get more food. That might be what they're looking to do.
Yeah, it could be. Could be. Then I mean, you figure, okay, at some point the mockingbird's going down in the grasslands. At some
Yeah,
point the merganser's going down, or the spoonbill. That's a bird you might want to play later too. Particularly, that might be a bird that you can count on for an extra 3 points as far as the EOR goes. Whether it's one thing with those end arounds, right? It's if going from lose to tie, anything that's centered around a tie is 3 points, right? So
yeah,
if you go from lose to tie, it's 3 points. You go from tie to win, it's 3 points. So you can probably count on the spoonbill for another 3 points towards the end round, plus whatever the bonus card. So it's like all those birds in his hand are birds that you think he'd be looking to play. But if he does go the titmouse kite double play in the forest, then I think he might be.
I think he'll lose it. I think he will lose the end of round, or
He
at
would,
best tie it. So yeah, it's an interesting kind of. I think the theme of this game has been like playing chicken with those end of round goals. Are you going to go for it? Who's going to blink first? Who's going to get the bird to go for it? They're both really kind of dancing around them a little bit. It is going to be interesting, I think, to see how Geese plays this. Certainly picking up that titmouse from the tray as they did, to me is a really strong signal that they're going to look to get this down kind of as soon as possible.
yeah, no doubt. And I think the heron is actually a nice pull
Mm,
for Stay Fun, just because it's cheap. It's 4 points. It's going to start building. It's give you a second wetlands bird to get some more cards. Particularly, Stay Fun I think went first in this match, right? So they would
yeah,
have first pull on the third round tray. So yeah, I mean, I could see Stay Fun lay some eggs, cycle that blackbird out, get the food for the heron, and then play the heron, and they've already got one food, I believe. Yeah, they've already got a wheat, which they could then convert with the heron too, which is a nice little bonus. So yeah, I think that was a pretty good pickup for them.
Yeah, I think at this point I'd certainly be looking to play that heron probably over that blackbird. I think, yeah, just when you've got something like the fish crow that is only getting one food a time, you're looking for these cheap birds that are only costing a single food. Clearly, stayfun isn't looking for those birds though. So yeah, but I think there's a nice, when you get those birds that are worth 4 or 5 points that just cost a single food, like we see with the kite that G's played previously. I think those are the kind of birds you're looking for, but they seem committed to the blackbird at this point.
Yeah, and I mean, you see the benefits of the blackbird. Right? I mean, it's generating 2 points every activation. I mean, so I'm sure that's kind of what they're looking at. But when you look at they've already got kind of a tuck bird in the grassland. Oh goodness, that's a martin.
Yep. That's ooh. That's the point where I would say drop everything and take it.
Yeah,
I think
man,
that's. I mean, at least they're safe in the knowledge that their opponent couldn't take it because that was the end of the round. But man, you don't often see a card like the Martin get left in the tray like that and not picked up by someone at the end of the round.
No, and I mean particularly right now you're only generating 2 eggs per grassland activation. You're gonna need to have a grassland that can lay a reasonable number of eggs. For your bonus and just I mean, I'm really surprised.
Yeah, I think certainly I would have been expecting that to be picked up and played, but yeah, just going back onto what Geese has been doing recently. So I think they probably thought things through a little bit and realised, as we kind of said, going for that double play is going to cost that end of round. So just went with the kite in the end. It's a bit interesting, I think, kind of how Geese's game has developed. They had that really quick start with those good birds down, but it has kind of slowed down a little bit. Only 4 birds compared to the 6 that we see stayfun has got. So I think they'll need to kind of get a move on here, and that mockingbird, the longer it stays in your hand, the less time it's going to have on the board scoring you points. So I think he'll look to be trying to get that down as soon as possible, really.
Yeah, I mean the mockingbird, and with it, it's only 2 points on its own, right? So it's really, it's you can kind of look at it even as like a 1 or a 0 point bird, just because of it's almost never going to be the first bird down. So in a habitat, so its power really lies in what it can generate for you, and it's like, I mean, as you say, that bird's value, it's like a, I don't know, reverse asymptote or something, where it's just you math people can is that right? Would that be a reverse asymptote?
I must admit, I've not been paying attention because I think the Phoebe just got tucked by stayfun. Which I was going to cut you off and say, oh, that's the perfect bird. They compare that so nicely with the fish crow. Get that extra food in the grasslands, and suddenly you're getting that 2 food and all the points as well. But yeah, I not often that you'd see a Phoebe get tucked. Certainly at this point of the game.
No, and I mean, if you think about the setup that they could have been looking at with the martin and the Phoebe, along with the robin and the fish. I mean, that's a dream grassland.
Yeah, it doesn't get much better, really, without having some of those, overpowered raven, killdeer type birds we saw in the last game. By getting food, as well as the eggs and the card cycle, it is difficult to beat that, I think, in a grassland. So, yeah, it is one of those games where you kind of look at what could have been, like you say, those kind of 4 birds, add in the Phoebe and the martin on top. That could have been such a strong grassland. So, a bit of a shame, I think, to not see that made the most of.
Yeah, it's unfortunate, especially the issue with the blackbird, and the issue that stayfun is going to run into, of course, is now they are gaining 3 points per activation of their wetland, but only 1 card.
Yeah.
And so, as and as they see, it's uh, it's just they're not going to be able to run that too many times, to the point where if if you had the Martin, you had the Robin down. I mean, get the Phoebe. Now you're looking at lots of tucks. Maybe you have to run your grassland one more time in order to generate enough, or excuse me, your wetland one more time in order to generate enough food or in order to, God, I cannot speak today or ever. In order to
You'll get it out
generate enough
eventually.
cards
Yeah.
to tuck through. Yeah. You know me. Something dark side. Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah. Now we just saw quite a savvy play, I think, there from Jeast, in that they chose to skip the kite. So obviously spotting their opponent has this vulture, and I think when you see your opponent kind of scrambling a bit for food, we saw stayfun on the last turn. They did go from the bird feeder, so I think it's a real heads up play that from Jeast. Spotting. If I activate this, I might get a point, but if that gives my opponent the food they need to get that bird down one turn sooner, that can cost me more in the long run. So I think that was a sensible play there from Jeast, and yeah, it's certainly one that I think a lot of players would have missed. But just going over to what stayfun is looking at, I can only assume that we're going to see a grosbeak played here, which again is kind of one of these, like the Maganza that Jeast has played. It's not something you see go down too often, certainly at this stage of the game. I can kind of only assume that this is partly looking at these end of round goals. It has potential to help for both, but yeah, kind of an interesting bird to be playing, I feel, at this point.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I'm just, this is, whereas the last game was kind of, you got stuff, flying around left and right. There's points everywhere. I mean, this game I think is looking to be not nearly so high scoring.
Yeah, I think this is potentially going to be a slightly lower scoring one than previous. I mean, again, we come back to this point of, you look at Jeast's board and he's only just now got to 5 birds, and that mockingbird I think he picked it up second turn of the game. You're pretty early on, from the deck, and it's been sat in his hand the whole time. And you might get it down this round, but then how many activations is that really going to get you? I think these are the kind of birds, like we said before, you need to prioritize getting these down as soon as possible, to really make the most out of them. But is that a Raven that stayfun just drew again from the deck?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and again, this kind of comes back to the point I think we talked about in the first game. You see a Raven at the end of round 3, do you play it or not? You've got to ask yourself the question of, is it too late, or can I still, justify getting this down? I think stayfun needs to think carefully about what they play, because if they're going to try and maximise that Uologist card, you want to be getting the birds down and being able to lay eggs on them, and certainly time is running out in that respect.
Man, that was awful dastardly the way you said that. stayfun needs to think very carefully. Like I picture you kind of like tapping your fingertips together and
stroking a cat.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, so if you're Jeast, I mean, you can see, like, all right, Jeast has so they got the rodentologist, so the barn owl would be a nice play,
Yeah.
and they've already got the food for it. They could get the mockingbird down, and that would give them an extra say 3 or so tucks, right? Then 3 or 4 tucks. They could maybe use a couple of those bits of extra food to lay some additional eggs. I mean, is that kind of it for them at this point?
I think so. I think, like you say, to be honest, I think they were already looking at playing the barn owl just from the food they went for. But certainly when you pick up that rodentologist with those extra 2 points, it becomes an instant play, really. And yeah, I think if they spend 2 turns here playing the barn owl and the mockingbird, then they have 5 turns left to lay eggs, and they're going to have more than enough egg spaces. Like you say, they'll have that option for being able to discard. Although, having said that, it looks like they're going for barn owl in the wetlands, so potentially with an eye on this final end of round goal, or this third one, I should say.
Yeah, and I mean, I think, I guess if you're you kind of if you want to force your opponent's hand, but then of course your opponent has to move the bird down anyway. And if you think, yeah, I guess if you look at it, okay, if they're going to play the mockingbird, and let's say they did put the barn owl in the grassland, right? Well, if they're going to play the mockingbird as well, they've only got 2 pieces of food left, so it's only worth 2 more points in eggs, but it's worth 3 points in in the wetland for its effect on the EOR. So yeah, that's I think that makes sense to drop that there.
Yeah, I'm going to counter that.
Uh-oh.
But I think what you said was right. The 3 points there for the end of round. Maybe it forces your opponent, but I think stayfun was already going to be gaining food to move it back. I think that was already part of their plan.
Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, I don't know. I think if the plan for Jeast is to just lay eggs 5 times, the barn owl, obviously we know these powers aren't great, but maybe you might expect within those 5 turns that you might get 1 or 2 caches. I think this is certainly the safer play. It gets you the guaranteed points. You know exactly that you're going to get those extra 3 points from that end of round goal. So yeah, if you're going for the safe points, I think that makes sense. But I don't know. It feels very difficult to call this game. I certainly don't know who's looking in the stronger position at this point. So I think if Jeast feels like he's on the verge of being ahead, then he's taken that safe play. But I think if you feel like you're behind, you need to be kind of gambling and trying to get those points from the barn owl in the grasslands.
Yeah, I do see what you're saying there. Interestingly, this I hadn't considered. I mean, and we probably figured that stayfun was gonna draw cards anyway, but this actually forces stayfun to draw cards in order to take the end of round.
Yep.
For this round and get the grosbeak up there, because otherwise, well, actually, what I imagine he'll do is get the grosbeak up to the grassland and then spin off those points into eggs. I would think. I mean, you can't be. Never mind.
Yeah, that's not what I was expecting. Yeah, I mean, I was going to kind of come in there and say, they need to get this extra bird down anyway for the orologist. Obviously, you want to be maxing that out. I think the Phoebe that they've got is kind of an instant play. Already,
Oh yeah.
already 4 bowl nests down and a 5th one with the Phoebe itself. Yeah, I kind of wondered if they were just going to lay eggs and kind of spend a few turns cycling through and trying to find something, and then even if not, I think even that chickadee in the tray would have been an attractive play there. If that's going to help make that difference between losing and winning the end of round goal, as we said, that's 6 points. It's another 3 points for the orologist. So suddenly you're looking at potentially an 11-point chickadee, which is kind of unheard of. But yeah, I think they are playing this with the intention of drawing cards here. Like you said, you move that grosbeak up, gets you those extra eggs. And then, yeah, pretty straightforwardly shift it up to your forest, and then that's going to help you in the end of round goal as well.
Yeah, and then that Phoebe becomes a real big ticket. I didn't see the Phoebe play right off, and see this is where, the kind of shows the a couple things. I mean, one, the benefit of having another person's mind to bounce ideas off of, for sure. And 2 is sometimes the best play isn't apparent right away, or you don't see it until later, and that's where you end up in woulda shoulda coulda land. But yeah, no, I absolutely agree. What I was talking about was terrible.
No, I mean I wouldn't say terrible. I think there's no. I mean, yeah, it's easy to say, okay, there's an obvious right and wrong answer. I don't think there's an obvious right and wrong answer here. Like you say, certainly, I think in most cases, drawing cards in this final round is not something you want to do. But I think the way that their wetlands is set up for stayfun, they're already getting those 3 points, from these tucking birds. So it's not a dead action. Ordinarily you'd be going, okay, I want to be laying eggs, so I'm getting more points. I don't think they would have got more points laying eggs. So this gives them the benefit of that extra card cycle. Being able to pick up and kind of assess, which of these birds do I want to play. But yeah, I think it's pretty straightforward for them. They can lay eggs. They've now got that raven down, so that gives them that way of getting the extra food. And I think that Phoebe, I think that has to go down. That's going to help the Oologist, but just a huge point bomb with all those eggs at the end of the game as well.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, you set your eggs up to meet the Oologist. God, now I hate you guys having me say Oologist.
I still don't know what the right way to say it is.
No, I mean, the reason I hate it is because I actually looked it up and it says oologist, like oologist.
Oologist, okay, oologist.
Oologist, yeah. But although nothing beats your ooh, look at this ologist, but
I'll sneak that in at some point.
Yeah, that's good. Good. But yeah, so they set it up for the oologist, and then get that Phoebe down, lay eggs to max out the end of round here, and I think, I don't know, I'm kind of feeling like stayfun might have kind of pulled away here in the end, but they've got looks like they've got a few extra tucks. Jeast, they're gonna have the same bonus points as Jeast, I think, or no, 2 fewer. stayfun's done better on the end of rounds, I believe. So yeah, I think, and neither of them really has any. I don't think any huge advantage in bird points. So I don't know. What do you think? I think I'd call it for stayfun at this point, but it seems pretty close.
Yeah, it is very close. I think I would just give it to stayfun as well. I think this kind of, the sequence of turns at the end, I think it's been a bit more complex, which is always harder to keep track of. For Jeast, it's been straightforward. They played the Mockingbird, and then it's just been lay eggs as many times as I can and get those tuck cards. We know it's been a clean 5 points there. But certainly, I think stayfun has managed to kind of balance this well, and that Phoebe, that's a really nice play. Like we said, kind of big point bomb helps for the oologist to max that out. And yeah, pretty straightforward for them. Lay eggs on this last turn. Get as many eggs as they can in that forest to win the end of round goal. But they still got cards to tuck, so they'll get 5 points as well. But yeah, I think this is going to be certainly within 10, if not within 5 points. This is going to be a very close one, and very very difficult one to call.
And you know what I'm going to do, given what stayfun did on the last game, is I'm going to actually cover. I'm not going to look at stayfun's screen. I'm gonna look at G's screen and watch it go ding 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 ding.
Yeah, and, actually. Through the magic of editing the video live in stream, I might be able to crop out stayfun's view as we go into the final score, just to at least give us a bit of suspense. So
there you go.
Yeah,
nice.
I will look to set that up just so we don't spoil ourselves, because I think like we said, in that game one, not too many surprises. I think with the score skipping to the end, you kind of had a feeling that was how it was going to go. But this one. I've got no real clue. It could go either way. So I'm with you. I always like to get that suspense of watching the points count up slowly.
Yeah, and I guess Jeast is going to have a few points advantage on eggs here. Man, yeah. I don't know. I might want to. Do I want to change my?
I was going to say you've got a few seconds, I think, to change your mind before stayfun lays all these eggs, but we're nearly there.
All right, you know what? No, I'm going to dance with the one I brought to the dance. I'm gonna stick with it. I'm gonna stick with stayfun, but.
All right. Okay, so
But I don't like it.
No. So yeah, I think they've just about managed to max out the oologist while also getting as many eggs as they can in the forest for this end of round goal.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, just for our viewers, I have covered over stayfun's view, so we will be going into the scores very shortly, and hopefully get a bit of suspense
That's perfect.
as the points count up. But
Alright.
yeah, here we go. Moment of truth. Certainly a lower scoring game than the last one, but man, this is kind of going to be neck and neck. I feel through all of the points counting up.
Oh yeah. Oh.
Oh, it's going to come down to the tuck cards, is it?
Oh yeah, that's G-Star
Oh
on top.
wow!
Wow. Oh,
By a
look at this.
single point. Oh, look at this indeed.
Amazing.
A good game. Certainly, yeah, neither of us had a clue how that was going to go. So very, very tense, kept everyone on the edge of their seats, I think, at the end there. But yeah, well played to Geest, who levels this series up, and it's now 1-1 in this best of 5. But we will, again, I think, just take a couple minutes break between games, but do stick with us. I believe we are planning on having a game 3, so do not go anywhere. Right, hello everyone, we are back and we are ready for game 3. So hopefully you have all recovered. I think I've just about recovered from that game 2, and yeah, 1 point difference in it. So here we go, game 3. Geest is starting for us again, and we have the house finch again.
That's the finch. Oh, and the
and the
Towie.
Towie.
Hello.
Wow. Okay,
Wow.
that's probably Geest. Fairly well set. Did they have the flycatcher as well in their hand?
I believe they did.
They did. All right. Well, this is interesting. Yeah, some real good picks there.
Plenty of grubs in the feeder too.
Oh, and look at those bonus cards. Wow. Yes. Yeah. Certainly. That Tau, he's going to be the instant pickup. I think it's going to be interesting what they choose to keep. I think obviously the finch and the flycatcher for me are the ones I'd be looking to keep, but potentially that stilt as well. You know, no real wetlands to speak of at the moment, and he's going to want something to tuck under the house finch, but also something to just get that wetlands going. So that could potentially be an option for them to look at keeping as well.
Yeah, and I think that starts to make a bit more sense when you. Well, I was just about to say if you consider the flycatcher, you can get the grubs there, but I don't know if he's gonna opt to keep that or not.
Yeah, I don't know. I think
think that gets a bit card heavy at that point.
It does a little bit, but I think you can make it work. I think if you keep the 3 birds, you keep the cherry and the worm. Obviously, we know he's going to be going for that towhee. I would expect at least turn 1. But then you still have a turn. You can get the worm, get the flycatcher down, and then when you lay eggs, you can use that worm to get the towhee down, and suddenly you're getting that 2 food. So, that kind of shortfall that you had in that initial pick, where you were only keeping 2 foods instead of 3, you can kind of make up for that. But it looks like he's leaving the flycatch this time, and hey, I can understand that. It's a strong bird for you, but obviously giving worms to your opponent is risky as well. But here we have
it's really risky when you see this pile of dump.
Absolutely, as we see stayfun starting hand, noticeably less good is probably the polite way of putting it. Almost to the point where I might consider not keeping any of these and just going for the 5 food, but I don't know what your thoughts are on that.
Yeah, that was my thought exactly. And of course, the rub for stayfun is they know they're not getting the towhee either.
Yep.
So it's like, yeah, you're gonna have to. Yeah, I mean, I'm keeping all the food. I mean, the only bird that you really want to give any thought to is like maybe the wren, but that's so bad.
No, I think I think I was going to say the same. It at least gives you something. I think they're looking at the turkey as a kind of big points. Maybe get that in the forest just to get that food generation going. Obviously helps for the second end of round goal as well. But yeah, I think the wren is potentially an option. It's not something you'd normally go for. It's reserved for desperate situations, but I think this is one of those desperate situations where you might be able to make a case for it.
If this is not a desperate situation, I do not know the game of Wingspan.
Absolutely, yeah, it's a very tricky one. It does look like they are looking at that goldfinch. Again, you can maybe make sense of that as just a way of getting you a little bit more food. Obviously, the seeds are going to help for the turkey. I do wonder if they've kind of got their eye on something in the tray. Potentially the turkey and the avocet works quite well. And I think if your opponent's going to be picking up and playing that towhee, they're going to be laying lots of eggs. So you can hopefully make the most out of that. But the spoonbill is an equally good option. So I think they'd be looking to pick up one of those and getting that down in the wetlands.
Oh no, there's a bird.
But when the sapsucker comes up, that's
sapsucker. Yeah,
absolutely. So, ooh, but they're not going for it.
Oh,
I think this is a case of I've committed to my plan and I'm not going to change it no matter what comes up. That's the only way I can make sense of that.
Yeah, that's unfortunate because I mean that would have been like, for they're getting 2 food a turn, 1 from the supply. That's 1 more towards their bonus card, which they're going to get with the turkey. Plus that would be a huge help to them in getting the avocet down with having that easy access to grub. So, and I mean wait a second.
Yeah, that just happened. I'm kind of surprised.
Was that a misclick?
I don't think it was. I think that was fully intentional. Yeah, we do not see that very often. Towhee in the forest. I think all the points we were making before about how nice kind of it is to get in that grasslands, especially with something like the finch, certainly makes sense. And yeah, I personally don't understand that when the sapsucker was in the trait. I was going to ask the question to you, if you're Jeast, do you take that sapsucker and try and get that down in the forest, as a way of just getting a bit of extra food and maybe set this strong grasslands up a little bit quicker. But yeah, that is a bold decision, I think, to say the least there from Jeast, getting that down in the forest.
Yeah, well, you can clearly see what the plan is based on what food they took, because now they got the food for the stilt and the finch, so they play the stilt, grab a couple cards that they can then start tucking through the finch and whatnot. So it's that's definitely one of those plays that is going to be debated, discussed.
Look at that tray as well. Fish crow again. Yeah, I don't know. I think you're right. The plan here is pretty clear. Get a bird in each habitat. I think he's looking at that end of round goal, and again, this comes back to the point we made in previous games in this series. You know, how much weight do you put on that first end of round goal, those 4 extra points you're gaining potentially, versus the long-term impact of something like Tauhi and Grasslands? And certainly when you see something like Fish Crow, you know, potentially Jeast might still have a chance of getting his hands on that, depending on if stayfun is willing to spend yet another turn drawing cards here. But yeah, as soon as you get those kind of 2 food generating birds in your Grasslands, I think you're pretty much set. And yeah, Forest Tauhi
and with the
not
tuck
looking
and draw
good.
to boot.
Exactly. Yeah. This is one of those where I think Jeast will be kind of regretting that. I think if he does get his hands on the Fish Crow, that alongside Tauhi and House Finch, that's your Crossland set basically. So a bit of a shame to see that not made the most of.
Yeah, and it's it's still stayfun is in such a bad spot here. I mean, you know, they've got no wetland bird right now. You know, their best option really, I mean, you don't want to put that Fish Crow in the wetlands. Their best option for a wetland bird is a 3 food bird that requires a fish that's not in the feeder. This is just, I mean, I guess that's if one thing is Jeast's kind of saving grace here right now, it's that you know, they've still got that Finch. Like they're just in such a stronger position than stayfun. So even if they do turn, you know, even if it does turn out that they wish they had that Tauhi down the line, I mean, they do have, I think, a decent lead, as much as a person can have a lead 3 moves in. I mean, certainly, you know, things can change quickly in this game, as we know, but it's definitely a big advantage so far.
Yeah, I think you make good points. You know, Jeast, I think, clearly has the potential for that stronger setup. You know, even in spite of something like playing the Tauhi in the forest. I think it does always kind of just make you think that, you know, what if you know, you could have had those strong setup, but hey, you know, that Fish Crow is still there. I think the longer that kind of stays, you know, maybe they might look at just getting that House Finch down and then using that tucking power to pick it up. I think, you know, when you're in a situation like this, whenever you see your opponent leave a bird for 1 turn, you have a reasonable expectation they're going to leave it for a second one. So I certainly don't mind this at all from Jeaston. Yeah, you know, House Finch plus Fish Crow. We saw a similar setup in one of the previous games in this series. It is a really nice combination to get in the Grasslands.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, if you're Jeast, you know, you can take the end of round with, you know, he's going to lay eggs for 2 turns, going to get to you know, cycle 2 cards, and then kind of maybe look to if he likes one of the cards that he picks up, then you know, then you look to grab the food for that with your 3rd turn.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. I think yeah, you know, Fish Crow's still there. He's probably going to be looking at that, but I'm expecting this end of round goal certainly to be in Jeast's favour, and you know, that's a nice option to have with those extra 4 points. However, that said, he's clearly not keen on the Fish Crow. Go for food there instead. So yeah, I don't know what to make of this. I think it's kind of difficult to kind of give my views on this because it's very different to how I would have played it. But yeah, I guess we'll just have to wait and see if this is going to work out for Jeast.
Flan, I don't understand this game.
I'm glad it's not just
granted,
me.
we already knew that. You know, you can from some of my recent performances, but no, yeah, it's sometimes I will say this though, from the perspective of somebody who's had their games commentated on, right? You know, it's like in the game against Devim, the Vouillé final, and you guys were commenting on it, and there was some stuff that you know, there were plenty of stuff that was justifiably criticized, and then there was stuff where I remember the commentators saying, "Okay, like this doesn't make sense." And then but I had a plan for the sequence of moves, and it just took a few moves for it to kind of materialize, and then you're like, "Oh, okay, I see. I see what that was accomplishing." So it's very well, that we know Jeast is a strong player. And we know that they're not doing anything willy nilly. So it's certainly unconventional, but I've got no doubt, and I'm sure you don't either, that they've got something in mind.
Yeah, absolutely. He's definitely got a plan. I think the whole plan, at least for this first round, kind of centered around winning this first end of round goal. I think they're going to be sorely disappointed seeing that spoon will go down, and I would be expecting here stayfun to be laying eggs, discarding that cherry, and being able to get the 3 to tie. But yeah, certainly Jeast will have a plan. I don't quite know what that plan is at the moment, but there will be something in there that they're working out. Certainly that snipe I don't mind. That I can accept as a way of just hopefully generating some more cards to be able to tuck under that house finch.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, they'll be able to get 3 cards per turn. As you say, the bad ones they'll be able to tuck, and yeah. Right now, as far as interesting tactical thing you mentioned, as far as you said, it's certainly stayfun is going to be discarding that cherry to get the third egg and tie on the end around. Just something for the newer players to think about. And this is something we touched upon in the previous game where we said, you're always looking at using the resources you have as tools. And in that instance, right, the difference between losing the end around and tying it was 3 points. So what they did is essentially they were getting 3 points for that food by spending it to get the extra egg, because it went from a 2-point turn to a 6-point turn. I know, of course, I can do math. I know 6 minus 2 is not 3, but well, whether I can do math, I suppose, is debatable. But the point is, the 3-point swing on the end of round was the price of that extra cherry, and if you want to say 4 for the value of the egg. So that's where you kind of look at opportunities to just convert whatever you have, whatever assets, whether it's food or eggs or cards or whatever, into points.
Yeah, and I think another kind of way to look at this is you kind of go, okay, is that food worth the same as an egg? And I would say in this situation, it probably is. You look at their grasslands, they're getting 2 eggs, potentially 3 if they want to discard. And then you look at that forest, and they're getting 2 food, potentially 3 if they want to discard. So they're kind of valued about the same. So I think, ordinarily, I think in most situations, you're not going to look to discard food for eggs, because generally speaking, eggs are easy to get hold of. But as we say time and time again, Wingspan is situational in every aspect, and in this situation it made sense to go for that discard. Get the extra egg, but you're helping that end of round goal as well, and certainly that made sense in that situation for stayfun to look to do that.
Yeah, no, I like the heron here, for maybe not on this turn necessarily, because they don't have any reason to think that Jeast would need it, so there's really not much sense of urgency. But the heron, I think, would be a nice pickup for them, because with the minimum on their bonus card, it's 7 points, and of course it only costs you the 1 food. Plus it's that second bird in the wetlands, and it's another 3 egg spaces toward the last end of round. So I'd like to see them pick that up at some point here in this round.
Yeah, and again, you come back to these kind of cheap birds, minimal food for maximum points. Like you say, it's gonna hit on that fishery manager bonus, which is so nice, and just being able to extend that wetlands out as well. At the moment they are having to discard eggs, and like I was saying before, eggs is kind of something they're not really generating that freely at the moment. I probably would expect the sparrow to go down at some point, so hopefully that will change. But there we go. We have the well, I was going to say we have a nice card in the tray, but we have a nice card blind from the deck as well. That is yeah, probably going to change their plans a little bit. Look to get that robin down as soon as possible.
Yeah, ding, 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 ding. Yeah, I mean you've got the food for the robin and the sparrow already. You want to, and you need some ground nest down to qualify for that end around. The sparrow you can get down cheaply, and of course the the grebe would be a good card for them to pick up as well. That of course I was talking about how maybe there's no sense of urgency about picking up the heron, and of course Jeast grabs it, so that's great. I'm covering myself in glory here today.
Curse of the commentator always applies.
Yeah. That's like the Rule 16 equivalent of commentating.
I think so. Yeah. The thing that you say isn't going to happen, it happens on the exact next turn.
Yeah. But yeah. So now it's kind of a question of order of operations for them, because that turkey is such a great bird for them. It applies to their bonus card. It's not really going to help them with this end around, but it could certainly help them towards the last end around, and it's just 8 points and a ton of egg spaces in its own right. So you don't really want to see them tuck that. So you kind of got to figure, okay, they're gonna grab some. They're gonna lay some eggs. Probably gonna want to pick up that grebe because they'll want cards to feed that robin, and it has a couple other benefits for them as well. The bonus card, the last end of round, and so on. So I think we're just going to see them probably have to. I mean, if it were me anyway, I'm thinking I'm gonna bypass that robin next time. Oh no, that's a little intriguing.
Yeah, and I was just about to talk about, okay, you get maybe the robin and the turkey down, and you've got those 3 cherry birds. You've got plenty of time left in the game to find that 4th one, but there you go, handed on a silver platter. I think, yeah, that wren for me is an instant play. Helps the bonus card. It's going to extend that forest out, so you're getting more food, not having to discard, but it's going to get you more cards. And I think when you have a particularly weak wetlands like this, where you're kind of only getting a couple of cards at most a turn, something like the wren is really going to help out in that respect. So certainly a nice pickup for them to get from the deck there.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. I mean that's probably one fewer turn that they've got to go draw cards. So it's one thing I know you've talked about. I'm not sure if it's in your commentary or your other videos, but I know you've said the one of, or maybe the most valuable thing that you have in this game is turns, and so the wren is really well suited for this situation where it's going to save you probably at least one turn in your wetland, and you're also going to be able to get be cycling more points. Like, so it's not only does it save you the draw on the wetland, but it's worth the value of whatever you can do that you didn't have to go to the wetland. So it'll probably be 5 or 6 points plus getting to see a couple additional cards if you assume, okay, well, they're going to be able to turn it into a nice grassland turn. So yeah, just some more reasons why that's I think a really I agree that's a great pickup.
Yep, and I think I would certainly be expecting them to play it. I think they're kind of going back and forth. Do I play the robin or the wren? Certainly, now they've laid the eggs, they've given themselves the opportunity to play that. I think you want to be getting this wren down, and then just unlocking that extra food. It's getting you cards, obviously the wren in what you're drawing, but it's saving you cards by not having to discard for extra food. So that's potentially even more turns. Another turn you might have saved not having to go to your wetlands. So yeah, I think that's the rational play to try and get this down. And there's nothing in the tray really that kind of grabs your eye. Maybe that kingfisher, but you go from the deck, and then it doesn't matter because you've got that robin that you can play and use that to cycle through as well.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree. Yeah, I mean it's just as we were talking about turns, like you say, it's that one extra food could be the difference between having to get food later or not. in
Absolutely.
this particular situation. So yeah, 100%, 100% agree there. And yeah, I don't know. I think you could make an argument for the kingfisher. I think you could also make it hello.
Hello. Again. Please don't tuck it this time.
Yeah.
Please play it this time.
Yeah, yeah. Because now that you know the Phoebe, you get the Phoebe and the Robin down
Yeah,
in your grassland. Now you've already met that bonus card. The
exactly.
Phoebe's
Yeah.
Phoebe's going to give you some more progress towards the bacon nest end of round, and that never gets old. I love that.
Yeah, I think
Once
that's kind of the play. You know, you've got all that food in the bird feeder that is already really well set up for Robin and Phoebe plays. You've got the eggs for it. I think absolutely no brainer. You know, you get the food and get those two down and start working on it. But yeah, we have talked quite a lot about stayfun for the last few minutes, so I do just want to kind of go back on Jeast and kind of look at what he's done. I think he's kind of set this up well. You know, something like the Clark's Nutcracker ordinarily, I would say, is probably not something you're looking to play. But I think there's a case for it here. You're getting plenty of seeds from that Tohi, so fairly straightforward. And he's kind of looking ahead, I think, to that next end of round goal as well, with those bacon nests you called. But yeah,
it's not my that's Elsie's term, not mine. I take no credit for that.
take no credit or flack for that. But yeah, he's kind of got well set up, I think, in all three habitats. You know, you're suddenly getting 3 food, potentially 4. I think that Nutcracker can keep rather than cash, so that's a nice option to have. And then he's just played the Swainson's Hawk in his grassland, so suddenly that's 4, potentially 5 points. As well as helping for that end of round goal. So yeah, I think it's fairly well set up here for Jeast. I think the question is, and it's been pointed out in the chat, is he going to tuck and try and pick up that Brant as a play?
I was
for the
just
next
going to
round?
say, and I wasn't looking at the chat. Whoever said it in chat is a genius. But but yeah, you tuck the heron, pick up the Brant. You've got the food for it. Now you can grab more cards to cycle, and you want to hold on to that burrowing owl. So
Yep.
you talk about turn saving, right? You look at one of the things you look at in a situation like this with the Brant, right, is okay. So they've got 6 birds down. The Brant is going to be 7, and it's going to pick them up 3 more cards. So now they've got 4 more cards in their hand. They just need 1 to kind of keep tucking. But if you look at that, that's 10 birds. So they may not need to pick up birds again. So that's another another point for the economically inclined, right? Is that it's the value is not just in the face point value of the bird, it's also in the value of the turns that it saves you later.
Yep, and it's gaining the 3 cards. They were gaining at most 3 cards from using that wetlands as well. So it's effectively at least as valuable as that. And yeah, it's another bird. It's going to help for that ecologist. So if they can really look at filling up this third column entirely and getting 6 points from that. So yeah, I think that's what they're going to look to do. Maybe not all of these birds that they picked up are exactly what they're going to look to play, but certainly there's some good options there. And I think with the amount of food generation they have in their forest, I think they can easily get a couple of these down. Maybe even just after a single turn of going for food, and then they can really focus on that grasslands. And it's already potentially 5-point grasslands. I think the more that they can look to use that and get those tucks under the finch, that's where the points are going to come from here.
Yeah. Well, if I'm Jeast, I mean, I know for sure. Like we've talked before. You can sometimes when you're considering moves or what birds you're going to play, you can rule things in. You can also rule things out. So I know for sure I'm not playing the Swift, right? Because the Swift is just going to take up cards that you don't have, and it's only a couple of points. That warbler looks like a good potential bird in the grassland. Like that could that could potentially be your third bird if you wanted it to fill up that column. And the burrowing owl and the bunting, those could both potentially be worth playing. So yeah, I would be looking, to when I run that grassland, I'd be looking to kind of tuck the swift and maybe see what else comes up.
Absolutely, and I was kind of expecting the Phoebe to go down here, and I did wonder if seeing that is going to kind of play into Jeast's mind. If you think maybe I'm going to get some free worms here, something like the warbler suddenly becomes a lot more attractive, much easier to get that down. Now they have gone for the grebe. I can only assume that's with an eye on the end of round goal because as we kind of spoke about before, they probably don't need to spend too many turns in their wetlands, maybe one more at most. You could probably justify it for that. But certainly I'm expecting them to try and get this Phoebe down as soon as possible. And, that's really going to play on Jeast's mind as I'm going to get some free worms here. That's going to make getting these birds down a whole lot easier.
Yeah, and I actually like, speaking of, I was talking about maybe the warbler in the forest, but I like Jeast picking up the cuckoo here. Just he's got 6 egg spaces on the finch, so
absolutely.
And the way things are shaping up, you can see your opponent's really investing in that end game grassland. So I really like that pickup for Jeast.
Yep, I think this is good. I think it makes sense to play that in the forest, and then like I was saying before, really for Jeast the key is going to be filling up that third column and trying to maximize out their bonus card. And if they do get the cuckoo down, that means they've probably got a spare card in their hand they can look to discard, get a bit of extra food, help play these birds. But then any of that food that's left over with 3 grassland birds, you can always discard for the extra eggs. So it's not going to go to waste. You're still going to get some points from it. So yeah, I think certainly a savvy pickup from Jeast. And you're right, when you see your opponent beginning to form a grasslands in the way that stayfun is doing, being able to react with one of these pink egg powers is a really nice option to have.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I mean, if I'm Jeast, I mean, you do keep saying, get that third bird down, and then I might potentially be looking to play a fourth, depending on how things shake out here. Because, if you take something like the, maybe the bunting potentially, or just kind of depending on what else you pull. You got to remember it could be adding 3 points to your total to be playing a fourth bird in your grassland if you assume that your opponent is going to play a fourth as well. So I don't know. I mean, I wouldn't necessarily rule it out right now that I'm not making another play. Beyond that, if depending on, I guess they don't know that extra food might be coming if it is in fact, but now I'm starting to think it might not be. So
yeah, it's kind of hard to work out here. Obviously, I think we kind of talked about this before with stayfun. If they get that Phoebe down, it's pretty much set. You can just cycle through. I think they kind of had their eye on that Baltimore Oriole in the tray, so they did go for the food, and then now they've spent that 1 turn drawing cards. Certainly, like we kind of talked about in previous games, it's getting to that point where something like the Phoebe, it's not a huge number of points. How many activations are you going to get out of it? You start to question whether it's going to be worth playing. And I think if they're looking at playing that Oriole instead, that's already that final bird for the viticulturalist that they're maxing out. So yeah, I think that probably spells the end of any possibility of seeing the Phoebe go down.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, I think you look at okay, when they get that Oriole down, that's that's going to give them another 2 egg spaces. So they'd be looking at 25 egg spots in total, and they can lay 4 eggs a turn. So you basically you get the Oriole down, and probably just run your grassland. I guess they would end up, let's see, 25 egg spaces and 6 turns at 4 eggs. So they would, they would have enough egg spaces to accommodate. So
Yeah.
I think that's probably your plan at this point.
Yeah, I think certainly that kind of makes sense as a plan. The stayfun did just give us a little sneak preview of the score. It was only 28 points, which kind of coming into
Oof.
this end of round 3, I think oof is the word. It's pretty low. Obviously, that's going to bump up. You know, the Oreo going down as we expect at some point soon. It's a big point bird in its own right, but it's going to score big points for their bonus card as well. So that's going to be nice. But yeah, you know, you kind of look at that board. They've got a few 1-point birds, a few 0-point, low-point birds, not scoring a whole lot there, and kind of, you know, that robin, it's gone down. This is the first time it's getting tucks, so really kind of not getting a whole lot there. Whereas I think you look at Geest's board, you know, it's reasonably high-point birds, a lot of tucks under the finch. We know he's got high potential for egg laying as well in that last round, and obviously the cuckoo is going to help. So yeah, I think it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out in the last round, but I'm not sure what your views are on who you think's going to win this one.
Whew. Yeah, I mean, if you look at, you know, Geest is looking at a, you know, what are they looking to play as their last play? Probably the Warbler. So maybe the I mean, I guess the Warbler versus the Bunting. If you think the bonus card, your expected draw on it is, you know, is it more than 3 points at this point? I'm not really sure.
Yeah,
just because,
probably
you know, you
not.
have no star nests.
Yeah.
You know, but well, and Geest just showed they got 57. So even the Oriole, which is going to be about a 12-point play, I think, it's probably, yeah. I mean, I think it's Geest's game at this point.
Yeah, I think so, and I think that Sparrow pull from the deck is potentially a nice one. You know, you can look to do that double play in your grasslands. You're kind of naturally extending that out to get those extra eggs, but also that final end of round goal. You know, birds in the grassland. I think if you can put yourself on 4, it does put pressure on your opponent to try and get that final bird in their grasslands. And really, I think that's probably not something stayfun's going to look to do. You know, their most logical you know, course of action, I think, in this final round is just going to be get that Oriole down and lay eggs. You know, if they have to spend another turn gaining food just to play a bird, it's a little bit slow. So potentially that might be, you know, another thing that is going to play into Geest's hands here.
Yeah, and just for, you know, for the lesser experienced players, just to understand, if you think about, so the Oriole right now, because it gets you 4 points for maxing out the bonus card, plus 9 points on its own, it's 13, minus the 1 egg cost is 12. Okay, but if you have to spend a food to, you know, to play a bird, right now in this case they don't have to do that to play the Oriole, but let's say they were going to do it with the, I don't know, the turkey. Okay, so the turkey would be, let's say, a 6-point play after you account for the 2 eggs, and let's just say it ties them the end around, so let's give them those 3 points. So let's say it's 9. But if you have to spend a turn in your forest where you're not gaining any points, then effectively the turkey, that's 4.5 points per play. But you can get more than that already. You can get 5 in your grassland, assuming you have the egg space, which you do. So that's just a little bit more, you know, a little bit more detail to help people kind of understand why having to, you know, take that extra food to, or excuse me, having to spend an extra turn to get food to kind of push out that grassland is something that stayfun, you know, wouldn't be looking to do.
Absolutely, and yeah, just kind of going back to what we were saying before about, is it worth playing the bunting for that bonus card? If you pick up the oologist, it probably is.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, that's you really couldn't have. I actually think this might be literally true. He might not have been able to pull a better card out of the deck. I don't think there's anything else that would get him more than 6. So
I don't think so at this point. Yeah, certainly that's the kind of bonus card you want to see late in the game. You know, when you're in a position like Geest here, you've still got the turns left where you're allowed to lay eggs, and yeah, easy enough to fill up those spaces. So pretty straightforward, I think, for Geest. Stayfun, however, I think they are they've seen that double play and they are reacting kind of in the way that you were talking about in terms of, okay, I might be able to get a big point play out of this turkey, but if it's going to cost me 2 turns to get it down, how worth doing is it? I know I could spend 2 turns laying eggs and get 5 points. So really, I'm going to have to score 10 points from this turkey play, just in itself. Potentially, might just about be worth it if they can get the extra eggs as that 4th grassland bird. But yeah, it's cutting it a bit fine, and certainly not being able to lay as many eggs as they were hoping to in this last round.
Yeah, and I guess I didn't. I did not account for that, the fact that they'd be able to lay that fourth egg. So I guess in that sense, it does gain them, one extra point total.
Yeah.
Because now it's when you consider the you're going to have 2 more turns left of presumably of laying eggs. So you get 2 extra eggs from that. So yeah, it is a 1 point net gain. But there you go. That even just shows again, how much you really have to consider things not just in single turns, but in kind of blocks of turns, and particularly at the end. I mean, it can be kind of harder to do that in the beginning, where if you look at there's 20 turns left in the game, and you're looking at a group of 4 turns. Well, obviously, it's a lot harder to project the impact of those further out in the game, and that's where you get into things like strategies and kind of broader considerations. But at the end, yeah, it's much easier to think in terms of like 3, 4, 5 turn sets. So yeah, it's a good point on your part, my friend.
Yeah, and I think you make a good point there about that kind of, it's much easier, I think, to kind of review a group of turns at the end of the game like this, because there's kind of a lot less variation that can come into play. I think there's a lot more certainty in terms of, I know if I lay eggs, I'm going to get this number of points. If I go for food and get this big point bird down, maybe I'm going for a bonus card. There might be a little bit of randomness there, but you can very clearly see, okay, I've got exactly 5 turns. What should I be doing in these turns to try and maximize the points that I can get from that? And yeah, I think that's such a key thing really to try and get in the habit of doing, particularly coming into this final round like this, being able to look at all the situations, look at all the possibilities, and just try and work out which one of those is best.
Yeah, I think the really interesting decisions in the last 2 or 3 turns can just come down to things like, do I spend a food to get an extra egg when that food might allow me to play a bird that I can pick up from a tuck, or those kind of things.
Yeah.
It's as far as like your kind of micro decisions at the end, where okay, this is definitely going to cost me a point, but if I pick up something where I'm able to play it that might gain me 6 or 7 points, then maybe it's worth it. But yeah, it's the last few turns, as you say, are things can be much clearer.
Yeah. Now, what do you make of this play with the Phoebe going down last turn for the end of round?
Well, I mean, it's we talk about kind of clear decisions, right? It's a 3-point bird. You have to spend 2 eggs to get it down, so that's 1 point there, and it's a 3-point gain on the end of round, so that's 4. It would be different if if that was like maxing out your viticulturist or something, then you could add those points into the decision as well. But it's a 4-point play versus running the grassland again was a 6-point play. So 2-point mistake. I mean, it's not. I've certainly made much bigger mistakes, but yeah. Oh, and we forgot to. I mean, I don't think we really needed to.
Yeah, I have covered over stayfun's score on the stream.
Oh, okay.
So obviously not spoiling the result yet, but I think, like you say, we kind of know what to expect here, and yeah, no huge surprises. It is a comfortable winning then for Jeast, and over 100 points. I think that's always a good score. Certainly managed that late game well, and those 3 eggs I think helped in particular from the cuckoo. But yep, there we go. That is 3 games of this 5-game series finished, and Jeast recovering from that first game loss to go with the lead 2-1. So very well done to Jeast. I think we're going to wrap up the stream here. But yeah, thank you very much everyone for tuning in. Hopefully you've enjoyed the games today. Certainly some very close games. That second one in particular was really difficult to call and went right down to the end. But yeah, thank you very much as well, Groove, for joining me. I hope you've enjoyed these games as well.
Yeah, cheers. It's been a good series of games. I'm already noticing some more things in the chat that are making me eat my hat. So that's that's good. Or I should say, eat my foot, not eat my hat. But no, always a good time to to chat with you, and glad we got a good series of enjoyable games to share with everybody.
Absolutely. All right, well, I think that's us done. So thank you very much again for watching, and like I said, we'll be doing more streams like this in future, so definitely stay tuned for those.